Hey, Podcast America. Welcome to Philosophy Hour with Mike and Tobin, brought to you by the Enlightened Neanderthals and Training Northwest, which you can find at trainingnorthwestllc.com. By the time you guys hear this, actually, you know what? I'll have June 21st. I have a carbine fundamentals class coming up. And after that, it will be private lessons only, which you can inquire about. Email me at trainingnorthwest@protonmail.com.
Say I was going to attend one of your classes, but it's like I got these janky-ass iron sights. What would you recommend doing?
We are a dealer of Vortex Optics, which I always forget to say. Yeah. So I have a few red dots, both pistol and rifle, and some LPVOs in stock, and then I can get anything that I don't have in stock very quickly. So if you guys are local here, Snohomish County, Washington, or nearby, if you buy from Training Northwest, then you also get to come out and zero your new optic on the range at no cost.
Sounds like quite a deal.
Yeah. So get in touch with me if you need a quote on something else, or if you want to buy an optic that I have on my website under the Pro Shop tab. This was a good episode, Mike. We got into all kinds of deep topics. Jordan was here for the first little bit, and he had to leave, go take care of some personal stuff.
At 9 o'clock in the morning, it's very hard to remember exactly what I talked about.
I know.
My brain's still like, warming up.
Man, we went down some rabbit holes on this one. I'm maybe we shouldn't even try to recap it.
It's a zigzag, baby.
Yep. All right, guys, enjoy the show.
So in recent days, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino said Epstein clearly hung himself, right?
Oh,
this is
everybody. All these. Trump was going to be the savior. Oops, it's just more of the same. Like USAID is still funded. What's the National Endowment for Democracy is still funded. Like all the deep state agencies that were supposedly getting all their funding cut, turns out they're still in business.
Oh, it's business as usual.
Yep.
But then we have things like, as well, like Biden was announced to have had, he has cancer, and he has cognitive decline.
Yeah,
and
they were not going to let him live a year after he was out of office. He'll be gone.
Yeah, but
and then here's my prediction: is that within a year of Joe Biden dying, Hunter Biden will have a quote unquote death.
That's actually
calling it right now.
Ooh. What's that website you bet on? You know, they take bets on anything.
Do they?
Yeah, it's like fucking if RFK will like eliminate mRNA vaccines, it's like there's a 6% chance, and you can bet on these sites about anything.
Really?
Joe Biden will die before New Year's Day 2026, and before New Year's Day 2027, Hunter will quote unquote relapse and overdose.
Yeah. Well, look on DraftKings.
Calling it.
Looks on DraftKings. Yeah. Promo code Neanderthal.
Yeah.
But I say that stuff because, like, especially the Joe Biden thing, people are involved with.
They got to clean up all that Burisma mess. It's still all sort of hanging out there. You know what I mean?
The money to the big guy.
Yeah.
But it's like not a lot of people are like physically directed in politics and in government. And so a lot of the times it's like, well, we kind of have to take the word of the officials that this is what's going on. But when we saw Biden, we all have had family members, or you've been around old people with cognitive decline.
Yes.
And so it's like, I don't have to be a specialist because this is my real life experience being around these people and seeing this. And so now that they come out saying
the emperor has no clothes, and everybody had no clothes, but we're all expected to recognize and appreciate his brand new fancy clothes.
Yeah.
But they did such a good job at dividing that, like with the Trump derangement syndrome, it was anything. We'll take a guy that's 98 years old with fucking Alzheimer's. He's way better. No, he's fine. Look at him. Look at him, the old guy. He could fucking go do a marathon right now. Nobody was saying that, but you know. At some point, there was so many people that were just like, he's fine. Yeah. And they, like, the left, like, extreme left, right? They were really like, he's fine. There's nothing wrong. Like, we'd rather have him. And in the back of their minds, they're going, holy shit.
But do you think in the back of their minds they understood that what they really were saying is that they prefer the Democratic National Party apparatus running the country to Donald Trump.
Yes, 100%.
And I think everybody understood that it wasn't really Biden, but half the country was just happy that their team, red versus blue, their team was sitting in the driver's seat.
Yeah. But just the fact that a lot of people would not be willing to admit that this is an absolute issue and we can see it, that was the problem, right? And that continues to be the problem on both sides.
Yeah.
And it's not until like people can actually like take a breath and look and like be honest with themselves, like, hey, obviously, or I'm a Republican, but I don't like what I'm seeing here and here and here.
Yeah.
But they've divided us so well.
Well, and it's like, I bring this up because it seems like
we're going to have to do a whole episode on like social programming and social engineering at some point, because that's what this really is. And I was just sitting here thinking, as you were talking about Trump, what social program is it that half of the country has downloaded that he triggers so deeply? And I don't know what that is, but it's something I'm going to have to ponder for a couple weeks.
Well, and it's always been throughout history when really bad things happen, it's always done in the name of like betterment. Mm-hmm. Like we need to do this right. We need to save democracy. So let's create a narrative that we think is the right thing for the machine to go on. Right. So all these, or we'll make an excuse like Biden, he had a stutter. He's not in cognitive decline. You're just seeing his stutter come back in. Or Trump is a Russian asset and he likes pee-pee on him and Putin has tapes about it. It's just, it seems so like all these narratives, they just keep throwing anything. And one thing kind of just gets a little traction, they're like, hey, just run with it, run with it. In. And it takes away from like the scientific method of just questioning everything. If you're on the left or if you're on the right and you're like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like this guy's mental acuity is quite there. Oh, don't question the narrative. This is exactly what's happening. I think maybe there could be some adverse side effects due to the mRNA. Don't question it. It's the best thing we've ever gotten. And it seems like when you just feed the line, they eliminate the ability to have discussion. I think it's why everyone is so divided is because they will only give a narrative. They won't give explanation. Here's just what it is. Yeah, and so the left will say, hey, this is the established like guidelines or thought of this.
This is the dogma. Don't question it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why there's such a big division is like debate. Like look at college campuses. They were supposed to be the hub of debate and exchanging thought. And that's been eliminated. Look at the news. You can't.
It's not been eliminated. It's been overtaken.
Yeah. Well,
it literally has been overtaken.
Overtaken does eliminate it. But that's transcended into the news. Like we can't have conversations about like possibilities of repercussions in our actions. It's just go with this direct narrative. And I think what that's done is completely sidetrack the American people into just teams instead of saying life is a gray area and let's discuss it.
I think the controlled narratives have been broken, and we've talked about this on this show before, which I think the Great Awakening is people realizing that we've been spoon-fed a narrative through some very tightly controlled channels up until everybody got a smartphone in their pocket. Yeah, and suddenly this million points of light, meaning every smartphone is a point of light that's beaming information all over the fucking place, and nobody knows how to put a lid on it. They're trying hard with all these internet censorship bills, and you've got like the extent, like the Patriot Act was just, I think Trump extended it and actually increased its surveillance ability, like domestic surveillance ability. So
I think
they're trying to put a lid on it. But it's not working, and that's what's creating this Great Awakening is people are starting to go, wait a minute, I don't know. Like, I can open up my phone and open up Twitter or X or Instagram or whatever, and I'll be shown all these news clips and breaking, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. How do I know if any of that is real? And so now that I'm starting to question everything that I'm shown, that makes it really difficult to spoon feed me a narrative.
Yeah.
makes it difficult for me to know what is actually real, but it also makes it very difficult for someone else to control what I think.
Well, the things, I feel like they did a lot better job in like the 90s and early 2000s with their control. Probably because the access to information is so much higher now, at a younger and younger age, right? Every kid has a fucking phone and has, you know, Instagram and all these different things, but they used to have, you know, they were more subtle with how they handled everybody, how they would manipulate the information before. It was easier because it was like you had the news, you had newspapers, and then you had public school, right? And then you had the like the Hollywood elite, right? The stars, which is
the influencers.
The influencers, right? And everybody would just look at these people and like pay attention to what, oh, well, if Rock likes, you know, The Rock likes
all
this
of our
guy,
cultural influence came from like music stars and movie stars. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That shit was always being controlled. And you'd see a few people that were just like, okay, they're going against the grain, like, but ultimately they're not, and we find that out years later, right? Rage Against the Machine is raging, you know,
but
that,
the machine.
Take your vaccine.
But then that was also like the thought was like these guys are against the system, and it was like, were they, or were they against that current, system? And then now, like, it's like, oh, it kind of unveils a little bit of like what's going on. It's like
I think they were expressing teenage angst in the late 90s and then got real wealthy and comfortable through it and didn't want to give up that. That's the other thing is once people get wealth and comfort, they don't want to let it go. So if you get too attached to your cushy lifestyle, you become more controllable. If you're not willing to burn it all down right now, you are under some form of control.
And that's like a big reason I say all this too, is because it used to be it was bipartisan, no matter what side you were on, that in life, no matter what, you're supposed to question authority, whether you're on the left or the right. Like the best thing you can do as an American is really take in the information around you and marinate on it and think about it. And whether you're on the left or the right, it seems both groups have just gone so hard to their own dogma. And like you're saying with the comfort, is that what a lot of this stuff is like life has gotten really good. You know, I mean, it's very easy to get your comforts. Food's available everywhere. Entertainment's instantly in front of you.
Right.
And so in giving people comfort, do they just, I like this comfort so much, I don't want to disrupt any narrative. I just want it to continue on as is, whether I'm left or right, but just this peacefulness or this easiness. I just want it to project forward. And I think maybe that's part of why you don't see people questioning. Because it used to be the left, question authority, the right even, question...
Cake and circus. And so the modern day equivalent of that is Grubhub and Netflix. And most people are actually pretty... if you give people, like... This is why welfare can be so damaging to people, is if you give them...
A fed tiger's not going to kill you.
Exactly. If they got a single wide trailer and an internet connection with Netflix and enough change in their pocket to get some beer and some fast food... they will find their comfort in that, and they will settle into that, and they will not aspire to move out of it.
Yeah.
And that is a killer of...
Well, you're kind of painting a pretty nice picture.
But it's sort of destructive to your, what is it, like your drive to creation.
Yeah.
And so that is, you could create an entire class of voters who vote for you based on they don't want to lose their free benefits.
Yeah.
Because they've decided that that's the best they're ever going to do in this life, and they're just going to hunker down in that comfort and ride it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like the American public has lost the want to being like a detective. You know, I just feel like everyone...
I wanted to be a cowboy.
Yeah. But a cowboy even would question things that are said to him because what he sees around him is real life.
I literally call myself a pirate now because constantly questioning and breaking rules if they don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And as long as they fit, everything is now a question of morality. I don't really give a shit what laws say. Is this moral or is this not? And if it's illegal but still within my morals, I'm okay with it. Yeah. So I routinely break laws.
Not me. Follow all the rules for those.
Straight and narrow.
Yeah. Boy Scout over here.
I think following like the heart of the law makes sense, and it's like, okay, I've said this a few times, but you pull up to a red light in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. It's like, what is that red light for?
Public safety.
Public safety. It's 3 a.m. Nobody's around.
Exactly.
Who's going to stop for that red light, and who's going to drive through it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is like things like that are at the heart of the law. It's like, hey, this is about public safety, but I look left, I look right, I'm going. Yeah. Right? Like, why am I going to sit here and wait? And, a cop could pull you over for that, and they could write you a ticket. And oftentimes they would or do, right? And
we're back to that same conversation I had with the sheriff here that I've told you guys about, where he's like, if you don't renew your license plate tabs at some point, he's like, I agree with you personally, but I'm going to have to do my job. So he will break his own morality to ticket somebody because it's his job.
Yeah.
And that's that right there. That's a statement. He's literally explaining how he gets himself out of alignment in his his energetic spiritual self.
Yeah.
And that's why police officers probably end up with a lot of like post-traumatic stress type issues, is that situation right there where they know they are taking action that is out of alignment with their own morality, and they do it anyway.
Just grinds you to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's like, take that one step further. I mean, Hitler's always the best example. Nazis are the best example to use in any argument. Mm-hmm. But what do you think, like, at a certain point, and I know they say a lot of Germans didn't know what they were doing to Jews, but a lot of Germans didn't know what the elimination of the Jewish people were. And that was, you were able to indoctrinate people into saying that these people are why our society sucks. And it took a war to get people to wake up and realize maybe what the things that they were doing weren't great. If Germans won, right, World War II, it would still be business as usual in that Third Reich mentality. So what is it that gets someone to get out of that thinking loop? Like with here, it's like, oh, Biden doesn't have cognitive decline. He's just got a stutter. At what point, what makes someone open their eyes to the current situation and go back into being a detective or a sleuth, not just absorbing what the narrative or the propaganda that's fed to you is?
It's a choice to.
But is that comfort?
It's almost like the Matrix, red pill, blue pill, where he holds out the two pills, and he's like, if you take the blue pill, you can go back to your comfortable life, where everything is like, you don't really have to apply much, and everything is, you have your cake and circus.
Yeah.
Take the red pill. We're going to show you how this actually works.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. It's a little more scary, but the flip side is everything's a duality. So if you want the high highs, you got to be willing to experience the low lows.
Yeah.
There's no other way, because you can't feel the contrast if you haven't felt both halves.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll give you guys a personal story from Iraq. On it literally was the night that I realized what the war truly was. And it's one of the memories that I've gone back to in plant medicine ceremonies. So I know it's the moment where it flipped for me, where up until this night, the war was new and exciting. It was like this swashbuckling adventure. And then this night, and then after that, I was aware of the change in how it felt, but I just kept deploying because I was like, well, fuck it, I'm a soldier. This is what I do. But it was no longer that sort of exciting adventure anymore. And so I think this was 2006 in Mosul, and things were pretty like hot in Mosul back then. It was a real violent city.
It's a fucking desert.
Everyone's pissed.
It got cold there in the winter. It snowed.
Oh, really?
But anyway, we raided a house. And this house had been identified as, this guy's making bombs for AQI to plant in the roads, kill soldiers. So, okay, let's go get him. And this infantry platoon that we drew, because I was working for the agency at this point, they raid the house, and we're hot on their heels with our asset to identify this guy. And so as we pull this guy into the living room we're going to interrogate him with the interpreter, and the infantry cats are rounding up women and kids and putting them in the kitchen. So call all secure, and I go to take a spin through the house just to check for myself that it is indeed secure. And these kids are just fucking trashing the house because they're searching it. They're looking for bomb-making material, and they are fucking wrecking everything in the house in the process. And I remember kind of thinking like, this is like generational wealth. Like these are like cabinets and shit that are made out of wood. You can't just this is like shit that was handed down from their grandparents probably because they don't have the wealth to just go buy this. And so I was thinking about that, and then I walked into the kitchen, and it was like 2 young women and probably 5 or 6 really little kids. And they're all huddled on the floor and crying. And there's like scared 19-year-old infantrymen standing over the top of them with guns, kind of like, fucking sit still. And it's like, they are sitting still, guys. But I just remember standing in that kitchen, looking at those kids crying and being like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
We're the bad guys.
Yeah.
We are the Empire tonight, because they didn't find anything. There was no bomb-making material in the house. It was a neighbor who had a beef and was hoping that we would storm in there and just shoot this guy, and then their beef would be settled. So over that, we fucked up this dude's house, fucking terrified. Like, imagine if someone came into my house and put my woman and children on the kitchen floor like that and zip-tied me on the living room floor.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Tomorrow I'm a fucking freedom fighter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that was the moment where I now knew the war was not in alignment with my morality.
Yeah.
And I kept deploying for several years afterwards, even though I knew that. And I think that was the seed that planted a little bit of like there were other incidents that I've gone back to in plant medicine ceremonies, but that was one of the big ones where I knew I was out of alignment, but I didn't really know what else to do, so I continued deploying.
Do you think you were out of alignment, or the war was out of alignment?
The war was out of alignment, and I was a willing participant.
Yeah. You were that cop pulling.
And I was at the front. Oh, I also wasn't changing oil in Humvees. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, if it was like more of a World War II, like where it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, you have militia.
But now, hang on. So sorry,
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
and you brought this up. Because I now understand that my participation in that war and what that war really, it wasn't a war for freedom. We were not fucking spreading democracy to the Iraqi people. It was a war for resources. And so we were the Empire, the stormtroopers in there. And understanding now that had we not have these million points of light and these smartphones to actually share information about what was actually going on, it would be very easy to control the narrative of what the war in Iraq was.
Yeah.
And so that makes me now question all of my World War II history.
Yeah.
Have we been fed the true narrative? Do we actually know what was going on? I don't know that we do.
Were those Germans a point of light?
Yeah. And people will be like, "You're crazy. You can't believe." Like, who wrote the books that we believe? Who wrote the textbooks that are in the schools? It's a public school. Imagine creating a system where every child in an entire country is going to get the exact same education that you control.
Yeah.
Right? Those textbooks are tightly controlled. Who gets to write those and who gets to publish those?
Mm-hmm. Deep pockets. And the
and
Rothschilds are the ones who...
The owner of Pergamon Press, the man who started Pergamon Press, who has the contract still to this day with the Department of Education to write all of our textbooks, is the father of Elaine Maxwell.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, Jesus.
And I will leave that right there. You guys can go as far down, you guys listening can go as far down that rabbit hole as you want. But I don't like to tell people all this stuff because then it's just something some guy said. You got to go find the information for yourself.
Knowing now, like, or having had time, because you've been doing the plant medicine thing for a few years, but like, I mean, I think it's taken a time for you to get to that point and be that poignant with like the seed at which you started thinking about that. When you see a cop pull people over, what is that feeling in that you got pulled over for the tabs? Do you look at him with like animosity, or you go, oh, you just don't see it yet, or do you go, you're not in line with like what's your feeling toward that person?
It's distrust and curiosity, because I'm wondering. Police are unique in that they are the profession that, as the authoritarian state grows and as they want to control us more and more, if you want to step outside the matrix, if I want to step, like I was saying, once you see that system, let's say I want to get groceries and I don't want to take a vaccine. Well, if there's an order in place that says you can't go in the grocery store without your digital real ID and your vaccine record, the police officers are going to be the ones who are asked to enforce that. Mm-hmm. So now I am always looking at police officers with curiosity when that kind of order comes down, like it did 5 years ago. Are you the police officer who will close someone's small business? In the back of your mind that you're wrecking their income, and you are wrecking their lifestyle, and you are wrecking everything that they worked for. But you're telling yourself, I got 10 more years, I get a full pension, and this is how I get health insurance for my kids. And you're justifying it that way. So in that moment, you are acting out of alignment with your morality, because you know what you're doing and you're doing it for personal gain. And that's what fucks them up later in life. That's why they have to deal with the same issues that soldiers do. But I also want to know, because we are forever marching, or not forever, but we are still marching more and more into this authoritative state with these, Flock AI, traffic cameras going in everywhere, and now you can't fly without an enhanced ID that records all of your political affiliations. Like, these things are actually happening. These are actual laws that are happening right now in the United States. And so I always, when a police officer pulls me over, I am trying hard to evaluate them. Will they stand the line? And it's funny. Remember, patrol cars used to say "to protect and serve" on the side. Mm-hmm. To protect and serve who? The citizen. Like, there's going to be a moment where they're going to have to choose: are you here to protect and serve the citizens, or are you here to protect and serve the political class that gives you your digital control tokens to go buy groceries? Because that's what money is. It's a digital control token that you can use to buy goods and groceries. And so we're back to, if you're not ready to burn it all down right fucking now, you are under some form of control.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep calling myself a pirate, because at some point I might have to burn it all fucking down and go Mad Max Road Warrior.
Yeah.
And I have gotten to a place now where spiritually and emotionally I can do that. And I'm more willing to do that than I am to be put in a box.
Yeah. Heavy.
Wolverines.
Yeah. Yeah, it just, I mean, you look at how police were used during Vietnam protests, and
Kent State,
couple
National Guard, shooting protesters.
Yeah. What was it? 18 people died
because they scared the system. When the system gets scared, it reacts.
Yeah.
It in like quote unquote matrix terms, every social program has an antivirus built in. And that's actually that famous scene from The Matrix, when the woman in the red dress, when they're walking down the crowded street in New York, and every person he bumps into gives him like an evil look. Because think of this in behavioral programming terms. Neo is daring to walk against the stream, and he's bumping into people. They are all the sheeple are walking one direction, and he's walking the other direction, daring to cause a little ripple in their pond. And so they give him these dirty looks. Yeah. And then eventually the dirty looks turn into like violent attacks, because he's poking the system. And the system has an antivirus. So that antivirus starts small with dirty looks, and then it ramps up to where people are attacking and killing. And you can see that happening right here in the United States today.
Yeah. Well, do you think part of why the Vietnam War ended was due to how much people were protesting and wanting us out of the war? It helped speed up the withdrawal.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
I don't think so.
No.
I think that,
because the nation was torn at that time. Like it said,
people were coming back and getting shit on. Soldiers were getting,
But the same thing, like the Kent State thing, it was 17 or 18 students were shot by National Guards for protesting. And it's like, now you're killing American children just because you want the war to continue going on. And when that happened, it was like, that woke so many Americans up as to maybe our voice isn't really being heard. And
I wonder if the protests in the 60s into the early 70s of Vietnam is why the sort of the deep state apparatus transitioned into more of like the dirty wars in the late 70s and 80s, like all the South America, sort of regime change down there and across the middle. Like they just, sure, they pulled out of Vietnam, but then they went into South America and the Middle East and just continued the same thing. And I wonder if that was their move to like, all right, we'll shut these people up by withdrawing from Vietnam, and then we'll real quietly slide into these other theaters.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you guys were saying earlier, like, I don't know what I can trust in the history books about World War II. Well, in a lot of ways, I do see World War II as the last just war because it was a lot more of
because of the information that we've been fed tells us that there was an evil monster committing some sort of genocide in Europe, and we went charging in like the White Knights and saved the world, which is a little too convenient.
Well, not only that, but look at like Japan, right? Japan took over the Philippines. They raped Korea. They raped China. They did all these things where other countries were invading other lands, right? That's World War II to me seems like the last big play of that. Post World War II, you get into Korea, then you get into Vietnam, and you're taking single states, single countries, and dividing them in half, right? It's not. And that's the same thing like in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now it's all inner turmoil in their own countries, right? It's not another countries invading.
Yeah. I don't even know if we can believe it. Like, here's a thought, right? If you walk into a bookstore, I can put a book on World War II on a shelf, and I can put Lord of the Rings right next to it. Yeah. And I say, that one is true and that one is not. And you go, okay. That's it. That's all it takes to create somebody's acceptance of what is true and what is not.
Doesn't body count help though?
I don't know. I wasn't around.
But who counted the bodies?
Yeah.
I mean, there's stories and recollection and books of citizens and film of parents.
Here's the thing. I have never personally met someone who gives me those recollections. It comes from a TV screen or a book that I've bought off a shelf. And when you start to think like, okay, what in this age of information and deep fake and AI, what the fuck can we trust? And then you start going backwards, like, hang on a minute. I just trusted that because this paperback book came from my library, this is true.
Yeah.
Because it says nonfiction on the jacket.
Yeah.
Who am I to question that?
Yeah.
Maybe we should start questioning that.
Well, yeah, even news sources and all that. Just like think of COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know as many people. I don't know anybody who died personally.
Yeah.
I don't.
Same.
So, but the news made it seem
I don't know
like
a single person who died with COVID.
We should have known a lot.
Yeah.
We should have known a lot.
It should have touched us.
Well, is it also because it's not in our age group? We're hanging out with a lot younger
I don't
people.
know.
We're not living at a retirement home.
My mom's fine. Her friends are fine.
My great grandma was fine.
Yeah.
93 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I look at that entire park that they live in. I don't know anybody who died in there. They weren't telling me, oh yeah, such and such. You know, I didn't hear any of it. Yeah. It was only from the news. It was only from a book. It was only from articles. It was, it was only from that shit that I was seeing like a body count.
Yeah.
I didn't see it anywhere else. And then the hospital, there was like, oh yeah, people are dying. And it's like, aren't people dying at the hospital all the time?
Every day. Yeah.
So it was tough for me to like see that. And then like, as we're talking about this and like, his story kind of thing, and like it's like the victor writes the history books,
Yeah.
Like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's all
that's
fake.
why I make it up anyway. Anywho.
Well, should we take pee break real quick?
Break.
We got to get rid of one of the cast members.
We got to shed Jordan. I guess we might as well go ahead and say it. We brought you a layoff slip, buddy.
All right.
We're going. It's going to be the Mike and Tobin show.
You pink slipping them today?
Yeah, we're pink slipping them.
All right.
Well, Jordan's got to go take care of some shit. So we're going to take a pee break, and then Mike and I will be back.
And we're back.
Now we're back with Mike and Tobin. We got our coffee.
The Mike and Tobin show.
Welcome to this hour of the Mike and Tobin show on PBS.
Yeah. A nice, mellow soothing voice for your morning.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's how all those PBS people, that is true.
Yeah.
All those PBS shows, they like to talk like this. Speaking of narrow conduits of highly controlled information, today we are bringing on a very special guest.
Yeah. Did you ever used to watch Saturday Night Live?
Oh yeah, Saturday Night Live was great back in the 90s.
90s, yeah,
Fantastic.
early 90s, especially too with like Phil Hartman and them. But what was that? Those two girls that had that PBS
Yes,
talk
exactly,
show with,
exactly.
Yeah.
They have like, what was
Peach Sweaty, sweaty balls,
sweaty balls. Yeah.
Yeah. How many can you fit in your mouth?
Oh my God, they're so salty.
Yeah.
Wow, they are really salty.
That's another thing that's gone downhill. Is Saturday Night Live used to push back on everything, and now it's gone woke, and it's kind of gone down.
Yeah.
But that's Saturday Night Live's done that throughout history. It has peaks and valleys, but this usually it's due to cast members. This seems like the first time it's kind of fallen a little bit due to.
I also think if you're like a truly creative person, like if you are a high level comedian, it's no longer the best model to share your craft is on network TV. So Saturday Night Live is not going to get the cream of the crop of comedians. They're going to be hanging out down at Joe Rogan's comedy club, or trying in Netflix or starting a YouTube channel. They're not going to go somewhere where their content is going to be somewhat controlled.
Yeah.
Because if you're on network TV, they're telling you, well, you can't say this, or you can say this, this, and this, but not that.
Yeah.
So nobody who is truly creative wants to be controlled in that manner. So they're going to go find these other, although I should say YouTube is censoring the shit out of us. So get fucked, YouTube. People with creative abilities are going to seek the least controlled medium because that's what creation requires, is lack of control.
Well, especially comedy too, because I feel like part of comedy, like that was the court gesture. Like the people could say stuff to the king and be like off with their head, but the jester could say stuff that pushed the boundaries, right? Because there is little grains of truth sometimes in those humor.
I think that's really what the true value of podcast is.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Did you watch that CNN interview I sent you where Tim Dillon went on CNN?
Probably not.
Probably not. Okay. Tim Dillon's a big comedian. But
what did he say? What was his point?
CNN wanted to interview, or I don't know who wanted to interview who, but he went on CNN and he was kind of talking to he was talking to one of their reporters, and it was a debate kind of where comedy sits in the current state of politics and where like the edginess comes in. And it seemed like the left, her take on it was that the left is, it's not that there aren't leftist comedians. It's just that comedy has become right wing, was her point. And he fought back saying that. Yeah. He fought back saying that it's not right wing. What you're seeing is a lot of, he said, journalism got dumber and comedians got smarter is kind of what happened.
And it's impossible to be a left-wing comic because left-wing ideology is control.
Yes.
So you cannot be a comic in a highly controlled state.
Right. And his counter was like, there's a lot of leftist comedians that are huge, like Louis C.K., one of the biggest comedians. He's kind of leftist. John Mulaney.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, they have leftist personal beliefs.
Yeah.
So you cannot, like, in a extreme left society, a comic can't exist, I guess is what I was saying.
Yeah. And that was kind of this whole debate as to like what's happening in comedy right now. And she was saying, oh, it's being overrun with men and misogyny and these narratives. And Tim Dillon's rebuttal is like, no, it's not. Like I said, comedians got a little smarter as the news got a little dumber. And I sent you that because you're like, hey, after the election, there's someone that wants to interview people as to why the left lost the election. They're trying to figure out why,
yeah.
And this kind of goes back to that, in that it seems like they're kind of lost as to the narrative going on. They're so deep in their ideology that they can't view it from the other side. And this is what I was saying earlier about like looking for the truth, right? People don't want to look at both sides. They just kind of want to take their narrative.
They want to stay in that. We're back to like the welfare and the bread and circus, where politically and ideologically, they want to stay in their safe, comfortable, like right here is soft. I feel good right here because it's human nature to be afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
And so if it's funny, like think about like people's pain baselines. People may, like Danielle was saying, that suddenly everything feels better. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, I didn't realize that my pain baseline was at like a 4.
Yeah.
And then I thought that was a 0 until I actually went to a 2. And then I realized, holy shit, I've been sitting at 4 all this time. So people will sit in their familiar comfort, or I should say in their comfort of familiarity. And so once they choose that, it's like, I chose Team Blue.
Yeah.
So now I'm just staying here and I do not want to hear any information that counters my team's dogma, because I like it here in my comfort.
Yeah.
And everything to humans that is unknown is uncomfortable and scary.
Yeah.
Even if it's softer, cuddlier, better.
And
the fact that it's unknown is frightful to them.
But
that's everybody. That's you and me too.
Oh, everyone. Right? But living in the unknown is what makes discovery.
Yes.
You know?
So creative people have to be willing to they have to be willing to have the courage to step into the unknown of unfamiliarity.
But not even creators.
That's why they say growth happens in unfamiliar surroundings, right?
But not even creators like science, like math, like if you just kind of live in this dogma of this is how it is, like nothing's ever going to expand. It's like we got to this point where it's like, oh, this is the high and we'll just ride it out instead of pushing boundaries. And it feels like we're on this precipice, this tipping point of either everything kind of exploding and us launching forward into a new part of human civilization, or a rock being thrown over our cave entrance and blocking it from blossoming as culture and society and a civilization. And I feel, I don't know if it's control or powers that be, but
it's the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
People are waking up to the real matrix is not digital. The real matrix is a system of behavioral engineering.
Yeah.
That keeps you on the hamster wheel.
But at the same
hang on, it's a system of debt slavery, it's a system of political control, and it keeps the human beings on the hamster wheel, always just kind of chasing that next carrot, that next little carrot, the next weekend. Oh man, we got a 3-day weekend coming up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I got some overtime coming up on this paycheck. It's going to be good. You're always kind of chasing that next little carrot, and it just keeps people perpetually on the hamster wheel.
Do you think tech is like promoting this Great Awakening though? Like I think it's working,
enabling it in some way. It's the Wild West. Yeah. The Twitter and Instagram and all the Facebook shit, it's kind of the Wild West, and they're struggling to get, like, we're back to the first half of the podcast where the control apparatus is really struggling and trying hard to put a cap on it.
Yeah.
But also I think, like, as part of the awakening, people are realizing we don't need tech. It's going to be the tool that was used to sort of light the fire, but in the end, I think people are going to end up walking away from their tech more than you realize. Because it's still a useful tool, right? I'll pick it up and use it once in a while, but it no longer, now that I'm aware that my attention is sort of like the golden nugget, now I'm aware of what I do with my attention, and I don't give it to Instagram, I don't give it to Twitter, I don't give it to fucking YouTube.
Yeah.
I take my attention out in the woods, or I put it on my kids or my woman, or, you know what I mean? So I'm very careful about what my attention is placed on, and that is creating massive changes in my life that are pretty fucking fun and fantastic to experience.
Well, you could take something and call it tech, and it can seem primitive to us, but like the printing press was a huge revolution in tech, because you're able to disseminate mass information such as like mathematics, English, history maybe. But yeah, but then the same thing, it can be used for propaganda and dissemination. As tech increases in those abilities to communicate and disseminate, it's like you can have both sides being used by this tech, but it does seem like truth or it just there's less ability for someone else to control the narrative as tech increases because
I
you
don't know,
have
man.
as many
I feel like
abilities to resist.
Like X, Instagram, YouTube. Those are the major channels through which people are getting their or maybe Reddit also.
Yeah.
And how the fuck do you know? How the fuck do you know if you are talking to a bot or an intelligence agent or a real person when you're tapping
That goes
out?
back again to questioning authority. It's like, yes, we all live in the ability to be duped and like countered, but as that human, the best thing you can do is take both sides and question, right? And surmise your own answers through being an investigator, a detective again.
I think the best thing we can do as humans is live in our very present now, which I call it like the snow globe. So imagine yourself at the center of a little snow globe, and what you can still, like right now, we're sitting in your garage. So our snow globe's pretty small. I don't know what's happening outside these walls. If I walk out in the desert, my snow globe gets a little bigger. So it's constantly, the walls of the globe are constantly expanding and collapsing. But if you make an attempt to just be present in your little snow globe and not worry about what's going on outside of it, I can promise you that your life is going to change.
Yeah. Well, it's like think globally, act locally is going to make the most amount of change. It's like, yeah, what your current surroundings.
I can open up my phone and immediately be hit with fear and panic that, oh, fuck, Putin's rattling nuclear, say blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, at some point you got to ask yourself, is he? Is that actually happening? Or was that just, that grabbed my attention and it induced a fight or flight kind of fear, like spike of like emotions and hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And what did it do? What did it really, and then did that lead to 20 minutes from now, I'm going to get irritated with one of my kids?
Yeah.
Because now I have that is flowing in my nervous system, that emotion, that reaction. Whereas if I just pay attention to what's in my little snow globe, man, the sun is out, the trees are beautiful, I've got a hot cup of coffee, let's go sit on the front porch and enjoy the shit out of this.
But the same way that tech can be used to say like Putin's saber rattling and he's threatening nukes.
Is he?
It also, no, but I mean that saber rattling of that tech article or something that's going to grab you. We live in the same time that Putin can upload a video himself. And maybe his stuff's propaganda, maybe not. But the ability would to have someone's
discredit it. And how would you know if that's a video that Putin uploaded? That's what I'm saying is it is impossible. There is nobody on this fucking planet who can tell me that anything is real outside of, you cannot verify anything outside of your snow globe. It's not possible.
It's true. But if Greg sent you a video, like, at a certain point, you're like, I'm probably going to believe that
trust this.
It's him,
yes,
right? So if like Putin does an interview,
but only because at some point in the future, Greg will be inside my snow globe, and I can say, "Hey, Greg, did you take this selfie video that you sent to me?" And he can say, "Yes."
Yeah.
And I probably would not have that conversation, but the mere fact that it's within my ability and it's within my realm of reality means that I will trust what he sends me. Or I will trust his words that he sends me. I won't trust a video he sends me of somebody else.
Yeah.
Like if he sends me an Instagram clip, to me that's just that's as like this is why I don't watch. People send videos they're like, hey, check out this video, and I don't watch it.
Yeah.
I will not give my attention to that medium. It doesn't deserve it. My attention stays in my snow globe.
You know those Russian nesting dolls where one fits inside of another and another? Do you think like that snow globe analogy works for like on that scale? Like you have your own snow globe and then you have the snow globe of your city and then the snow globe of your state, the snow globe of your country, the snow globe of your continent, the snow globe of the world.
I don't know.
You know, because eventually, like everything does have to nest together.
So along the line, like the double slit experiment. So in that vein of observation creates reality, I think that I just stay inside my own My own snow globe, my own observation, my own reality.
But your reality is part of a bigger reality as a whole.
Only when I observe it.
Only when you, but even if you close your eyes or you're locked in a box, you're still in a branch of the Milky Way in a universe that's expanding or multiverse, who knows? But whether your head's in the sand or not, reality exists. If I say, Tobin, you're a black man, in my head, I close my eyes. I've never met you. And in my head,
If I stick my head in the sand, am I consciously choosing to not I'm actually giving, in some ways, I am creating what goes on around me. Yeah. I'm intentionally putting my head in the sand because I don't want to know about the bad things that are happening around me. And by saying that, I am creating the bad things around me. Yeah. Right? As within, so without. I am so afraid of these bad things in my mind that I'm going to stick my head in the sand and I'm going to create all these bad things around me that I can't see.
Yeah.
That is me consciously creating that.
Yeah.
So if I choose to be present and I'm going to create a fucking sunshiny snow globe with all the mountains and the trees that I enjoy, then I'm going to spend most of my time in my snow globe with my mountains and trees and sunshine.
Yeah, I don't know. It just makes me think, like, I mean, that's what geopolitics with other countries are, is this country sees itself as being this and another country sees itself as this.
Yeah, that is some serious social programming, because so you take guys like Greg and I who are patriots and we want to fight for our country because it was attacked, and then you take some guys on the other side of the world and you install some social programming that says hey, we're fighting for our God on this side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what politics is you take those two social programs and you slam them together. That's why the politicians aren't the ones fighting. They understand these games. They're taking the young men, installing some social programming into them, and then battling it out on the desert.
No. I mean, that's for a one world government, or a unified world. It just has to be, like you said, those snow globes. Each country has their own snow globe. But in the end,
I didn't say that. You said that.
Well, okay. But everyone has a globe that they live in, right?
Yeah.
But the world itself is a conglomeration of all these globes, like those nesting dolls.
Well, I think really what it is it's more like we as conscious creators, observers, we each have our own little bubble that we float around in. And sometimes your bubble, your snow globe, crosses mine. We get a little double bubble going on. Right?
I got a double bubble.
Yeah, you want to step inside my bubble there, buddy? But I think everybody is sort of, it's that, I think there is a bubble universe theory. Yep. I'm not positive.
Yep.
And it's sort of like that, where you are the center of your system and I'm the center of my system, just like the sun is the center of the solar system. Mm-hmm. And our little bubbles sort of float around, and sometimes we intermix. And there we go. That's what politics is the intermixing of all those bubbles
into one huge, yeah.
Well, trying to cramp, that's it, is they're trying to take everybody who's in their own little bubble and trying to force you to be in a bigger bubble. That's what dogma is. That's what religion is. That's what left versus right politics are. That's what quote unquote science is now, is like, hey, you must live inside this bubble. And it's like, nah, motherfucker. I like my bubble.
But individual bubble is nice, but think of it, okay, here's another analogy. Say your bubble instead is just a drop of water, right? And so you live in your own drop of water. Mm-hmm. That's your reality, right? And everyone else has their own drop of water. One drop of water is nice. Mm-hmm. You can wet the tip of your tongue maybe, but you can't really do a lot with one drop of water. Now need a tsunami. Yes, you get many drops of water, everyone's little drop of water, and that creates power. That creates the ability to erode cliffs, to create life in oceans.
Sure. And that's what politics is. That's also what leadership is. I wonder if politics is like the antithesis of leadership. Like we can't, because if you're a capable leader, you don't need to force people to follow you. They just will. They just do.
Like water.
Politics is almost like enforcement of you will follow these dogmatic rules.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's politicians are the antithesis of leadership.
But it's weird because you can have a strong leader that becomes like a Marcus Aurelius or something, someone that went from a soldier to a leader, right? And say it did, I mean, Rome conquered and was bloody, and times back in the day weren't easy, but you can have a strong person that then becomes like a politician or a leader that makes a collective group better. Yep. Each little nesting doll kind of starts, or drop of water starts to come together when you have that leadership politically.
But then when you have, let's say, a strong leader, we're talking like Celtic barbarians. A strong leader rises to become a warlord of sorts. And that's why there's always a power struggle when he leaves, is because now the system is in place, but it's a system that was built by a strong leader, and it requires a strong leader to step into that role, which bloodline does not necessarily guarantee that. So that's why you always, as one like chieftain or king would die, there would always be some sort of little upheaval within the tribe to replace him, because at the end of the day, and I experienced this in Iraq as a contractor with the agency, because there wasn't like a set rank infrastructure, like the Army. Like you'd work your way up through the ranks, and you're assigned your job title and your rank, and the Army assigns you your authority. It's not just sort of taken by the measure of your own leadership capabilities. The contracting teams would just sort of self-sort.
Okay.
Because leadership rises.
Yeah.
And so everybody sort of nobody, there was no muss, no fuss. It's just, in that kind of situation, we're pulling real missions. There's real danger. Leadership would sort of self-sort itself, and the guys with strong leadership qualities, we would end up in leadership positions. And it wasn't like that's not to speak down to anybody who wasn't in that position. It's just, if you're good at it, step into it and lean into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Leadership is something I've never really thought ton about until probably the last 5 years, when it seems like we have a lack of
real
it.
Important. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really important.
But I don't know if politics robs leadership, like you're saying, it's the complete opposite of it, because it muddies the water, and you can't really see clearly, because I don't know, maybe that political sphere, its job, even in our, like how our republic's set up through checks and balances, you could say what you will about Putin, but you can get a lot done as a dictator because there's no checks and balances. Seriously, though.
You heard it here, folks.
But
you're right.
If you serve a 4-year term,
it requires the submission of a whole lot of people.
True.
It requires a whole lot of people to submit to you, just based on the nature of your title and the authority you claim, which is no different than our system here.
Yeah.
There's 350 million people in America who submit to the system, even though, and that's why I get frustrated with all the guys who wear like the "Don't Tread on Me" t-shirts and bullshit like that, because it's like, you're still submitting. You're wearing a t-shirt that says "Come and get them" or "Don't tread on me," but we are all still submitting to the system.
Yeah. Well, do you think there's value in participating in certain aspects of the system?
Yes. So the system provides us some of these creature comforts. I can go to the grocery store and buy a steak. So that's why I'm kind of torn. It's like the system pushes us down, but at the same time, we have a lot of creature comforts.
Yeah. And not only creature comforts.
But we could also maintain those creature comforts without a system that is controlling us. Because in the end, we are still the ones who collectively create all these creature comforts. And then we have this entity that sits over the top of us, and it's like a giant succubus.
Yeah.
That just pulls because your digital money tokens, your digital grocery tokens, those are they're traded to you for your time and your efforts.
Yeah.
And then they withdraw 30% of that from you. So really what they're stealing from you is your time and effort.
But if you think,
because I don't need the IRS to go buy
no one does
a half a cow from a butcher.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Why do they need to participate in that transaction?
But the system, like, think of maybe the idea of like old world technologies that were lost. Like Rome had running hot water, and like Greece helped develop democracy and like higher level thinking. But when those cities or those empires collapsed, how much did we lose of knowledge that took us time to refigure out or to reorganize and to get technologically advanced?
I think Rome intentionally hid a lot of knowledge. I think that's maybe that's another podcast topic, but to talk about right now, Christy and I were talking the other night about how white people are not allowed to have culture. Have you ever noticed that? Like every culture is celebrated in the United States except for white people, and we're not allowed to talk about our culture. And our culture was wiped out by Rome, right? Which then plunged Europe into the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
So our culture was erased. We had a culture. It was Celtics and Norse and Germanic tribes and whatnot. We don't talk about that shit. And there's no books about it. There's not a lot of podcasts. You know what I mean? Like you can't find much information about it. It was, and white people culture was wiped out by the Romans in, shortly after Christ's death. AD.
Yeah.
So I do not look at Rome as the light. I look at Rome as the beginning of the empire.
I'm not saying the light, but the advancements of a collective. Like we're talking about, there's benefits of having like the system, or what I would say kind of the collective.
How did we get onto that? That was a wild, that was a little bit of a tangent.
Have you not listened
cruising
to our
altitude.
podcast? Yeah. It's not linear, my friend. It's a zigzag.
We'll have to take an online vote. Who wants every once in a while, maybe Mike and I'll release like a special episode where we hit low Earth orbit and just talk about all our stoner ideas. Might be difficult to listen to, or it might be gold.
I think that's a high Earth orbit. Yeah. We're hitting the heliosphere, my friend. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and this is what people have always debated over time. And like I said, I've kind of been getting into or diving back into Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, just because I think they're interesting. They each had their own point of view of how politics works. Like you can read Plato's Republic and Aristotle's Politics, and like they're very counter to each other. Some believe in like monarchy and a one rule government. Others believe in a democracy more. And there's certain validations for each. Kind of like I said, you can have, if you have a great leader that cares about his people and it's like a king, great. The king will make a shit ton happen real fast for the people if he really is a great human being. But if you have a bad and benevolent king, he can, as quick as he can make it good, he can make it bad. So it's like, whereas with the checks and balances of our republic, you can have great ideas, but the slog and the filter makes it hard for change to really happen. So it's like, well, what is the best way? And I've said it before, what's the best way to be led? It's like we have to have forms of leadership and some sort of social cohesion that propels us on a upward trajectory or betters us as a planet. And I debate that all the time. What is the best way to be led? How do you make it so people have the most stability, the most safety in certain ways? And I know people say, oh, you sacrifice freedom for safety. True. But sometimes safety is like a group, a collective. Like back in the day before the sheriff would rally a posse. Let me get a team of people to go get this person.
I think you can create a lot of safety for yourself in a small group.
Yeah.
If you have strong leadership.
But once again, that's going back into a collective.
That is why humans have always been tribal. Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need. I think it's also a mistake to think that we can collectively live on nation scale. It's too big. It's too diverse, right? Like what's important to the East Coast is not important to the Midwest, is not important to the Mountain West, is not important to the West Coast. Look at Washington State. What's important in Eastern Washington and Western Washington is very fucking different. One side's a rainforest, one side's an arid desert. One's cityscape, one is agriculture and forestry, right? The two things, they have different wants and needs and desires.
But the people all still have the same pretty much basic wants.
Basic
I want
needs,
upward opportunity.
But the way they collectively achieve that is very different. So in Eastern Washington, it's through agriculture and it's a little bit leaner living. It's a little bit more subsistence living. Like when you grow up in a town like Omak, there's no home, or there is now. In 1995, there was no Home Depot.
Yeah.
You couldn't just run down to the Home Depot and get whatever you needed to fix your house. That shit you had to drive over the mountains. It might be a week or two before you could do it. So there was a lot more kind of like making, how your grandpa stores all the extra plywood and all the extra 2x4, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't know. And you got to make do with what's on hand at the time. And then later you'll have the opportunity to go for supplies or whatever. But It just isn't there at the time.
Sounds like
So
the system made your grandpa's life easier with that Home Depot, though, and
did.
the ability to progress forward in a little bit.
But it also closed him in with McDonald's and strip malls and traffic lights that he had, you know what I mean? So
and eliminated opportunity of small businesses to be the lumber store.
Right.
Or
So I am learning that I would rather live with materially less and have naturally more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy barefoot in the woods.
Well, I heard some.
I don't need much.
Yeah. Well, I heard someone talking about wealth the other day, and it's like, what is wealth? And it's like, you can, and I think he said it well, but it's just like being wealthy is being happy. You can have a ton of physical goods and be unhappy, but true wealth is just enjoying life with what you have. Right. That's true.
And so
wealth.
that's part of the social program we have, is that if you get more, you will be happier. Like get a new F-150, finance it at this rate. You think about how happy you will be in that new truck.
Yeah.
And then you get the truck, and it's like you get a little rush of endorphin as you're driving it off the lot, and then a day later it's just another truck.
Yeah, I should have bought a Tundra, not that Ford.
Yeah. And then and now it's a thing you have to go to work because you got that payment, right?
Yeah.
And so you just get kept in this cycle of material, like you're chasing that next thing. If I can just get the bigger house, if I can get this, then I'll finally be happy. But the reality is that's not what brings happiness. What brings happiness is finding the center of your snow globe and living in that moment and enjoying what is with you right now, right here and now.
Well, it's interesting you say that.
And it's not brought by material things.
It's not made by material things, but that continuous.
But hang on. So then finding that center of the snow globe is what allows you to start creating within it. And then the thing, like we're moving to the independent of Christy and I are moving to the independent Republic of Granite Falls in 12 days.
Yeah.
And it's something, I'm going to tell you right now, we created that. We manifested that.
Yeah.
And it was by not worrying. We didn't do it by worrying about materialistic things. We did it by getting centered in our own little reality and then learning how to create within that reality.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, as the world, or say our country, or we'll just say civilization, kind of what seems to make us better is continually doing those same things over again. Like, as much as it sucks that you buy that Ford and now you have to continually go to work, repetition is what seems to make us better. Like, think of jiu-jitsu. Yeah, you could once a month you could get a lesson from Joe, Al, and Greg, privates, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, that's really good. But what'll get you really good is every day showing up and doing the monotony. Mm-hmm. And doing that over and over, that builds progress. Like, you may not enjoy it as it's happening, but if you look down 10 years down the line, you're like, holy shit, I've gotten better. I figured out these new things. I think of that same type of thing as a society. It's like, there's a lot. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do this. But over 100 years with a nation constantly hammering, there can only be an upward trajectory, right? Because through the labor and the effort, you're getting real-time data back at you.
I think you're right. And then that begs the question, so why is the nation crumbling? And it's because we have a system that sits on top of us and just leeches off of us.
Yeah. Yeah, well.
Everybody's trying hard, and somehow it's not working out. And it's because there is a giant succubus sitting over the top of all of us.
But isn't that the inherent, like, once again, the fall of Rome? Like, it was because groups of people made a collective area that rose, but
it's because we've created an entire class of people who are not creators, or they've forgotten how to create is probably a better way to say it, which is that if you are a government bureaucrat, you don't create anything. You sit in an office filling out forms to withdraw from other people who do create.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because allocation of resources can like throw you into success or throw you into famine. And like
the federal government is the largest employer in the United States.
Oh yeah.
That is an entire system of people who do not create and who leech off of the creations of everyone else.
Yeah, it kind of seems like maybe that is like back to Plato, and he's like, that is the inherent structure of the system, why he thought maybe like one rule, a king
And
could be better.
And that same succubus sends its military worldwide to suck up resources of other people.
We're getting pretty good at
It's
it.
a giant sucking machine.
Oh man, don't look at my search history. Giant sucking machine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a question people have been asking, I feel like, since dawn of time. You know, what's the best way for a group or
I think back to small group, like city states almost.
Yeah.
And people go, well, what about infrastructure? Well, if the independent Republic of Granite Falls wants to trade with the city of Everett, somehow the merchants of those two cities have to come up with an agreement to fund a roadway.
Yeah.
Right. And then if somebody wants to provide fresh water to the city of Granite Falls, they've got to figure out a piping system, and people who live there have to be willing to pay for that piping system.
Yeah.
So that's where the private market sort of shines, is that people will always seek to do those sorts of things. And when you outsource it to an entity that doesn't give a shit, of course it's going to be fucked up, because that entity is not looking to create the best roadway for the sake of commerce. That entity is like, all right, how can we skim fucking 30% off the top here?
Yeah. Well, isn't that kind of the idea of true libertarianisms, is that like each state is what it is, and the role of the federal government, like you're saying, this place wants to trade water with this state wants to trade water with this state, and there's a lot of moving pieces, but the federal government can say, hey, we can help provide some material and stuff to help facilitate this. Or like,
why do we need that outside? Like,
I think wasn't that the federal government's original, to bridge the gap between the states, to help be a median to not collect, but to help bridge matters that affect all the state, like Washington, Oregon, Idaho, right? We all wanted to trade water, and we're starting to realize
it's too big, because like here in why do we give a fuck what's happening in Florida? We don't. And Florida doesn't give a shit what's happening out here in Washington State. So trying to put us all under one framework is ridiculous.
But then
it doesn't work.
But then it's like, why have a United States then?
Yeah, city states, buddy.
Just
come on, Mike.
So,
Granite Falls is seceding.
But it's nice to be like, if you were Washington and
Bring your green hat.
Yeah, we're going. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I go back and forth all the time. Like I said, I'm politically homeless. I don't know what the best way to be led is, or what the best method is, but I don't know. Once again, it's that detective thing.
It's not by somebody in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Fucking 2.5 or 2,000 miles away.
But I'm still interested in hearing the arguments from that side. I want to hear the arguments from the opposing side.
I'm not saying we should not communicate with, like, we are already in communication globally. Yeah. That's not going to change. Yeah. I think our system of governance, that Jesus Christ, I'm stumbling over my words. As what's funny is, the reason I'm stumbling over my words is I realize I'm saying the best way to govern is at a very small scale, as the global control apparatus is rising.
Yeah.
And it is advancing forward. You have things like Starlink is a DoD project to provide connectivity globally, right? Now we have things like Real ID or Neuralink, where soon people will have little chips implanted, and then now your chip and your people will be so excited to get their Neuralink, but now through Starlink they can be tracked globally, individually, right? So it's like the global system is rising, and maybe that's what the Great Awakening is part of, is pushing back against that and saying, "Nah, maintain my biological autonomy."
Yeah, human sovereignty as a human being. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, when I get Neuralink and I'm speaking Mandarin, Spanish, Italian, you'll be jealous, my friend.
That's right. Greg and I are going to zip tie you to a tree out at the range and just leave you for the ants.
Speaking in tongue.
Oh, man. All right. Well, that was a pretty good episode. I think we
for a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
I was just gonna say, this is why you get stoned at Sunday morning at 9 o'clock.
It's a little hard to get everything going.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you are enjoying the show, give us a review. Tap that 5th star, because it helps spread the podcast to other listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening.